There's another person that I'd like you to sort of talk to us a little bit. I mean, he's a hero, particularly Daniel's from our crew, and a great, well, you call him a music hero as well, and that's Jimi Hendrix. You met him a few times, I think, but there was one particular occasion in the USA when you guys were touring and you had problems and he helped you out. I mean, Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, we did. We met Jimmy and a number of other people when we did a tour in England in must have been the end of '67, and that was quite unusual because you tended not to meet many other bands because you were always working separately, you know, different shows, different nights, and so on. But this was actually a proper, the old style rock and roll show with sort of 6 or 7 bands on the bill, all of us doing 15-20 minutes, and then Jimmy doing the last 40 minutes. And so we had got to know him a bit, and he was fantastic when we were in America because yes, we'd been let down by a number of people and there was no equipment that we'd been promised, and he just said, "Oh, go down to my warehouse down in the village in New York and take what you need."
Because it's funny, isn't it? Like, you were just a band, weren't you? Like, you know, you're huge now, and Jimi Hendrix became huge. But those kinds of, oh, we have no equipment, oh, we need to find some space for storage and stuff. It's probably the stories of many bands who are starting out, and in fact you had that same experience, like struggling musicians, or you know, not, it wasn't always A-listers and red carpets.
I mean most virtually every band has to some extent pay their dues you know, to learn how to work on the road, but and I think there's quite a lot of camaraderie that applies when, because most of us have been there, most of us would do what we could to help in a situation like that. But Jimmy was particularly sort of easy about it, and I think was very interested in music per se. I mean, I think probably he found it easier to communicate with, sort of musically almost, or with musicians or whatever, where there was a lot of common ground, than in other areas.
Gosh, what a nice story. You met Jimi Hendrix. Okay, we're still before the Dark Side of the Moon, and Pink Floyd is on a European tour, and you're doing some classical pieces as well. It's with the Atom Heart Mother.
Atom Heart Mother. Yeah.
And you spent some time in France as well, and then you took a break at the south of France, Côte d'Azur. But one particular detail that struck me was that you and your partner at the time decided to go to Yugoslavia. Hello. Now, do you have any, and why on earth would somebody go from Saint-Tropez to Yugoslavia?
Oh, it was a great...
What do you remember, if anything? From
very little, because, I mean, we had a great holiday, but of course it was, at the time, it was, we drove down there from France, and it was great. It was a great sort of holiday venue at the time.
And was it? Did you go to the seaside?
Yeah,
or
just went to the seaside and had a really relaxed time.
Very low key.
Yeah, very low key on a beach somewhere. Can't even remember where it was now.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, but it was terrific.
Lovely. Okay. Well, there's a possibility of you coming back if we can sort it out. You said you might come and visit us in Sarajevo. Yeah. We'll see what we can do. That would be really lovely. I think we might sort of take a little break now. Ako ste se tek sada uključili, sa nama je Nick Masonom, bubnjar legendarne grupe Pink Floyd. Ja mislim da ćemo sada napraviti jednu malu pauzicu, a kad se vratimo, govorit ćemo o albumima. Ja samo još jednom da spomenem, već sam to rekla, Dark Side of the Moon, album Tamna Strana Mjeseca je prodat u 30 miliona primjeraka, ako ne i više. Statistike kažu da svaka 5, a možda čak svaka 4 kuća u Engleskoj ima taj album. Kada je izašao u Americi, bio je u hit paradi 724 sedmice. To je Pink Floyd, ovo je Nick Masonom, vi se vidimo za koji trenutak. Dobrodošli, ako ste se tek uključili, vi gledate emisiju VIZA i nalazimo se u prostorima Nick Masona, koji je bubnjar legendarne grupe Pink Floyd. This is part 2, Nick. Hello again. Just welcoming the viewers who just tuned in and missed out the first part. I hope there's not that many of them. I know. But before we carry on with our lovely chronological sort of chat, what's that?
Well, that is a very, very useless object. It's actually a model of a drawing that I did for an album called Relics, which was a sort of best-of album in the 70s, quite early. And so it was our first sort of compilation of tracks. And I'd done this line drawing, black and white. And Storm Thorgerson, who does all our record sleeves, or most of them anyway, came up with the idea when we did the digital versions of these records to actually make a model, a sort of three-dimensional model of what had been a line drawing. And so he found a very clever model maker who actually has built the whole thing. And the detail on it is extraordinary. There's all sorts of things that I'd never even thought about in 3 dimensions that have now been translated.
Looks good.
Every office should have one.
Every office should have one, absolutely. Right. Yeah, well, I think I should have one in the house. Very nice. Okay. Now, what I'd like to talk about is Dark Side of the Moon. I just said, I mean, you know, over 30 million copies sold. They reckon that every 4th or every 5th, it's debatable, you know, statistic, house in the UK has one. That's a lot of people. When it came out, it was 724 weeks in the American chart. It probably is still in there at some, you know, like, I mean, I just bought them again. Like, you know, I was just listening to it before this interview. It's just really, really amazing. And I think the older you get, the more you can start appreciating the craft and it's just perfection. But that perfection started, it's kind of about 1971. You're sitting in your kitchen. The others are with you.
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit later than 70. It was probably 72 that.
So Chloe was born, because I was kind of thinking she wasn't born yet. Is the other thing.
You know what? I can't remember. She might well have been just sort of a new baby at the time. Yeah. And I think a number of us had, or certainly Rick had got kids by then. So maybe that was another influence on it all. But yes, the album, I mean, the gestation of Dark Side is various different people have various different ideas, but there was certainly one of the elements of it was a meeting in my house at the time in Camden Town, and a discussion about what exactly this record was, or if not exactly, roughly what this record was and how it should be formed. And it became a record with a theme to it, which was about the pressures of life. And we probably had some elements of the record already in place, but then there was, once we'd got a clear idea of where it was meant to go, then it was really down particularly to Roger to write the lyrics, which he did, went off and sort of formed those. And then finally to actually knit the whole thing into one hopefully seamless record. The success of the record is quite interesting because it transcends the business of it just being one element that makes it successful. It's not just the guitar playing or the writing or the songs or whatever. It's actually, it includes things like the sleeve itself, and it includes the attitude of EMI, and in particular Capitol in America, which changed radically for this particular record. In fact, credit should go to a man called Basker Menon, who was the guy who was sent in to try and get Capitol Records in America to operate properly. It was about getting a business to understand the product that they actually had. And up until that point, the record company had not really understood what or who we were, and felt that we were something that was a bit peculiar and was sort of underground and had very little real commercial potential. And I think Basker came in and pointed out to them that this wasn't necessarily the case, and actually got the record company working on it properly.